Julianne Genter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The national government is failing the economy in a number of respects. So I'm going to talk about the different ways in which this national government are failed economic managers of this country. Firstly, the imbalances in the economy. And this is clear in the statements. The evidence is right there in the forecast delivered to us by Treasury. We already have the worst current account deficit in the developed world. We're worse than Spain, worse than Greece, worse than Ireland. And this is a real worry because it means that we are buying more than we sell to the world. So if you look at New Zealand Inc. and want to see if we're actually going to achieve an economy that's going to sustain us into the long term, we have to look at the current account deficit, not just the government's own accounts. This government, the national government, is trying to distract from the issue that the current account deficit is bad and is going to get worse under their stewardship. What the documents and forecasts from Treasury show us is that we're going to go from having a $10 billion a year current account deficit to a $17 billion a year current account deficit. And if you were to look at New Zealand Inc. as one might look at a company, and we were going to go from making a $10 billion loss a year to a $17 billion loss a year in 5 years' time, then I think that most sensible people would want to fire the board of directors, who is essentially the national government. Because that's what Treasury's numbers show us. The national government is failing on their own priorities of rebalancing the economy, and therefore they've stopped talking about rebalancing the economy. And they're trying to distract New Zealanders by focusing on the government's own balance sheet rather than looking at the country's balance sheet. The only way to deal with the fact that we are buying more than we sell to the world is going to be to borrow more or to sell off assets. And neither of these two strategies are a sustainable strategy. The national government is also failing to take the opportunity to transition to a clean, green economy that works for all New Zealanders. And the Green Party has a number of sensible, evidence-based policies that would give us the means to not only reduce our current account deficit, but to develop clean, green jobs that are actually going to be very, very useful in the coming decades. What the national government constantly talks about is growing our economy by drilling, fracking, building a convention center, more gambling. All of these things may look like they're leading to economic growth, but it's just that. It's just growth. It's not actual productivity gains. It's not actually going to translate into higher standards of living for most New Zealanders. There's only so many years that we can dig up our resources and sell them off and expect to make money off of that. So in the future, we need to be thinking about how we can develop jobs that are going to enable us to thrive in a carbon-constrained world. That's the real world. That's the real world that this national government is failing to confront, the hard scientific evidence that there is a limit to how much carbon dioxide humans can burn before we have to stop. And if we don't fully decarbonize our global economy by 2030, there will be nothing. There will be not a stable climate or opportunities for our children and grandchildren. And I know New Zealanders care about the future of their children and grandchildren and want that opportunity for them to live on a planet with a stable climate. And it is entirely possible. This national government, they frame it as a trade-off. They say either you can have money or you can have a stable climate. Either you can have money or you can have pristine conservation estate that is it's not a trade-off like that. In fact, our natural advantage is our clean, green environment. We stand to get richer precisely by protecting our conservation estate. We have nothing to gain from opening our conservation estate to foreign companies who are going to mine our natural resources, pay very little in royalties, and then bugger off. So the Green Party has a vision for a clean, green New Zealand, and an economy that works for everyone. And it's entirely achievable. We can reduce our current account deficits through smarter spending on transport infrastructure that will also reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And that's just one example. We also have a Home for Life program that we put forward that can increase housing affordability without increasing land supply and increasing urban sprawl. So there are many smart green ideas.
Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise with pleasure to talk about this government's economic record as the